Hi, I'm Tyson with Adventure Rig, and if you enjoy spooning, then this system by Therm-A-Rest is the ideal sleep system for you. So how this works is that we have pads, we have a sheet, we have a sleeping bag that zips into the sheet, and then on the very far end, we have a quilt for just that extra little bit of warmth. So if you can hang in there, I'm gonna go through and explain each piece and how it does, and when we end, we should have a pretty awesome bed out here made for two with an incredible view. Starting with the Therm-A-Rest NeoAir Venture. So with this sleep system, you can do two things. You can either use two separate pads like we've used here, or Therm-A-Rest also makes one single pad so that you don't have the split down the center. The reason that Callie and I chose this route is because you can still use these pads individually. So if you had one big pad, you obviously can only use that with this entire system. If you go out camping by yourself, it's not gonna be great. So with these, they're gonna serve multiple purposes for us. They'll fit with this, however, we can still use them by themselves. Also, some other things that we like about the NeoAir Venture is that, one, it's relatively inexpensive. Two, it's still pretty light. Three, it packs up into a nice small stuff sack. Also with the NeoAir Venture, it's a warmer pad. So it actually has over 100 cells throughout the entire pad, and they call that the wave core technology. That's gonna heat up from your natural body heat and then keep the entire pad warm. So if you're camping in colder or winter conditions, this pad is still gonna do okay for you. One thing to mention with this sleep system is that you need a larger pad. So these are the large sizes. They measure roughly 77 inches long and 25 inches wide each. And what that does is it makes this sheet fit these pads really well. Now, if you already have pads, you need them to be a squared off pad such as these. So you can see that the corners are a 90 degree. And the reason for that is that the fitted sheet actually goes onto those corners and wraps them very nice and snug. The next part of the sleep system is this sheet. And this is a fitted sheet that goes onto both of these pads, or if you buy the one giant pad, it goes over that entire pad itself. And the great thing about this sheet is just how comfortable it is. That's the first thing I noticed jumping into it after a long day. It felt a lot softer and a little bit more supple against my skin compared to the sheets we have at our house. However, we're pretty cheap and those sheets probably aren't that great. These, however, feel great and they don't seem extremely hot to me. So what we're gonna do next is take this sheet and attach it to these two pads. I will mention that this sheet does come with the Ventana sleeping bag, which we have here, and I'll touch on that next. With some help from Callie, you can see that this fitted sheet goes on here with relative ease. Now it is totally doable by one person, however, it's a little bit simpler with two. Like I had mentioned before about the pad, you can see that in the corners where it's squared off at 90 degrees, the pad fits really nice. Also, they do provide spots for the air valves on these pads to come through. Another great thing is that on the bottom, you can see that they do have two attachment points so that this sheet stays secure on your pad all night long. Also, it is easy enough to get into the tent because you can fold this in half, stick it through the door, and then once it's in, unfold it, and you have your sleep system base. Another great thing about the sheet is that on the underside of it, it does have its own pocket, and the entire sheet stuffs into itself. You can also see the zipper that runs around the perimeter of the sheet. That zipper is for the Ventana sleeping bag. We can now take that sleeping bag and zip it into the sheet. So now you can see that we have the Ventana Duo zipped into the sheet. A couple things about this sleeping bag that I really like. One, you can obviously zip it into this sheet and it becomes its own quilt on top. Two, you can zip it back into itself like a normal sleeping bag, and then you do actually have a normal sleeping bag. So this goes back to the fact that you can have one item doing multiple purposes. So if you wanted to take the sleeping bag out by itself, along with one of the pads, you can use everything by itself. You don't always have to use it as a dedicated purpose for two. Also, the sleeping bag is a synthetic insulation, so if it does happen to get wet, it's still gonna retain some of its warmth. As far as the warmth factor goes, they say 40 degrees is as cool as you'd wanna use this sleeping sleeping bag in its current system where it's made for two. If you zip it back into itself and use it as its own sleeping bag, they say more around the 32-degree range. Now last night we had temperatures of about 45 and I was relatively warm all night, and I had the entire side zipped open so that I could hang my legs out. Once about 3 o'clock rolled around, I got completely into the sleeping bag and I warmed right up. However, I'm more of a warm sleeper. Callie's definitely a colder sleeper, and that's one of the reasons that we wanted to try this out, because I'm always in my sleeping bag sweating. She's always in her sleeping bag freezing. So we thought, well, what if we could combine these two so that I've got my hot body up against her cold body? This is win-win. It'll help me cool off, it'll help her warm up. Definitely works, and we love that system. I also love being a big spoon. They've also incorporated these drawstrings into the sleeping bag. So up here at the top, you can tighten this and actually bring it down around your body to really help cut the drafts in the sleeping bag. And you can see there's another one right here. Just one more feature to help minimize drafts and keep the warmth in. Moving on to the last piece of this sleep system. This is the Vela Double Quilt, and the reason that we decided to get this is because, like I said, Callie is a really cold sleeper, and so we thought if we had one more item to throw over the top of all of this, that she would stay warm no matter the conditions. However, for me, I'm already a warm sleeper, so I like to just take it and throw it all on her side. And it is really warm because it's 650 down. However, with the down, it's gonna be a little bit more expensive. So this retails for about $280 compared to the sleeping bag, which retails for about $270. However, the nice thing about down is that 1, it's light, 2, it compresses really tightly, and 3, it's extremely warm for the weight that you get. Some other great features about this quilt is that along the side, you do have these button loops, and you can physically attach this quilt to the bottom side of your sleeping pad. And the way that you do that is they've actually provided some stickies that you can stick on the underside that also have a small loop in them. And then you can take this, loop it through, and then back to itself and button it, and the quilt is gonna stay put. Also, they have this really nice baffle down the side so that you can keep that on the inside while this wraps around, really again helping to minimize the drafts. Also on the top, it does have a little bit of an elastic cord in it just to keep it nice and snug on the top. This is another piece that I feel like you can use in a lot of different situations. It's just a quilt. You can take it with you. You don't always obviously have to use it on this sleep system. So if you're gonna go out camping, climbing, whatever the activity may be, you can take this along, and if it gets chilly, throw it over yourself, lay it on the ground, wrap up in it. It's just another all-around great piece. So again, this is the Therm-A-Rest, what I call the sleep system, made for two. If you enjoy spooning as much as I do, I think that it's something that you should definitely look into. And I mean, what could be better than this? We have almost a queen-size bed set up in the desert on a beautiful morning overlooking a gorgeous view, and I just made a complete bed. The only problem is I need to share it with someone. How great is this? Life does not get any better. Thank you for watching. If you guys have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments section below, and either Callie or I will get back to you. If you're ever wondering where we are, like, where the heck is that? It's a really awesome camp spot. That's what Callie and I thought. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Adventure Rig. Thanks again for watching. I'm Tyson with Adventure Rig.